Hi guys, Tim here, going to do another military video. This will actually be a start of a little mini-series I'm putting together on British military tactics from earlier than you expect, actually 1600s right through to about the late 1800s, roughly. And early 1900s. But yeah, so I'm going to start right back in the 1640s and 1650s with the English Civil War going on. The British Army, well, I say British Army, British militia, civilians at the time, of course, fighting the two sides, the Cavaliers and the Roundheads, fighting off each other. The British Army had always looked upon kind of the foreign lands, Sweden, Switzerland, and the Danish and the Germans, and a lot of other European countries for modern, up-to-date, for the time, up-to-date tactics to go with the British Army. And it was actually the modern kind of tactic, as people know it today, before the 1600s, in about the 1500s, was Frederick the Great, Frederick III, if I remember correctly, of I believe Sweden or Switzerland, one of those. Yeah, I think it's Sweden. Yeah, Swedish king, who kind of devised having swordsmen, pikemen, and musketeers in as one big square back in the 1500s, and that's kind of the modern style as it progressed. Of course, with other armies like the British Army or British militia back in the 1600s, it was different. So how they had it was they had two I'll just put that two kind of tactics. It's still volley firing was a very, very effective way. It has been, will be through the different episodes, for a long time. And we'll get to, we'll be very famous right through the Napoleonic years, right through to even as late as the 1890s. But this is kind of the very early days of the British volunteer. British kind of voluntary army, civilians, militia. This is the English Civil War. So the two tactics which are quite famous. The first one, which is called, which is all copied from the foreign kind of names and places and nomenclature. The first one is called the Dutch countermarch. And now how the British use this Dutch countermarch is they had very similar to what would be later on known as line infantry tactics, but they had had roughly about 4 to 5 men in a line, and they would all fire a volley from their, at the time, most modern weaponry at the time, which was the matchlock, slow-burning matchlock musket. Again, smooth-bore, non-rifled musket. That's what's called musket. So firing off, 4 to 5 guys, even 6 possibly, guys, in it, firing a volley in a row, firing their matchlock muskets all off. Then those 4 guys in that kind of group will retreat, because there's other guys in a block there. So there's 6. So it says 4 fours. There's 16 guys in that group. That front row fired their volley, then would retreat behind the whole group of them. Then the next row would fire. The next 4 will have their volley, have their fire. Then they would retreat behind, and whilst they're doing that, they would reload. Second volley. So it's kind of, they would come up, retreat. Next one, retreat. Next one, fire, retreat, next one, fire. And it's kind of, from that, it's kind of, fire, go round, fire, go round, fire, go round. It's kind of, and that constant volley firing against the oncomers, the enemy as such. Then the other one, which is slightly different and kind of better in such a way, which was called the Swedish sleeve. And again, it comes from kind of copying foreign names, the Swedish sleeve. And now how it was is he still had roughly the same amount of people, well, roughly, but it was kind of, you had the first row, you had the first kind of row of men, it kneeling down like they were, you know, suppressing a French cavalry charge during the 1800s, but this is different. They had the first front guys kneeling down, then right behind that, two men standing up. So you'd basically have guy kneeling down at the front with his musket pointed that way. Second guy standing up, third guy standing up, and that will be the first row, yeah, of men. And then it will be so those three men would be kind of in that line like that, but the actual group would be kind of not there, it would be kind of there tilted. So you have that row. So it kind of works the same. So basically, how can I describe it? So basically you had it basically in kind of a 45-degree angle roughly. Then you have that 45-degree angle with, so 1, 2, that 45-degree angle, 3, yeah. And so when these guys, all three, the kneeling, the standing and the other standing person would fire their volley, yeah, then they would all kind of go round in at 45-degree angle and kind of separate like that and twist. So those three would then fire the reload, and the other three, which is just twisted around that way, then those other three would change places with the guys who've just fired and start following fire, and then they would repeat. I thought I'd show you a little photo from a book, a very famous book. This is a great book here, Soldiers book, massive book, brilliant. But if we go back to here it is, little bit there. So that's what I'm trying to explain. That's a Swedish sleeve, like that, in kind of a line, at right angles, 45 degrees, and then that's what it would be. That's a Swedish sleeve there, and then that is the Dutch countermarch there, with the kind of volley fire. And also you would have your two kind of sections of men, one section doing the volley firing, of course, depending on which drill you're doing, Swedish sleeve or Dutch countermarch, would be one block there, and in the middle you would still have your pikemen, who, if there's some confuddle with reloading or bad ammunition or something goes wrong and you can't really take it in time, the block of pikemen, about 16, 20 of them in that block, would then suddenly in the middle, which will be in the middle of the two infantrymen, two men, two kind of blocks of men who are firing off their matchlock muskets there and there. In the middle would be the pikemen, and they would go in front, pardon me, of the musketeermen, who are trying to figure out what's gone wrong and trying to resolve it. So whilst they're doing that, they've got backup. They've got a plan A, a plan B, which is those pikemen, which are in the middle of the two musketeers. Yeah, which again, I'll show you. Not as I said, photo. It's not a photo because photos didn't exist back in the English Civil War. But yeah, so this English Civil War, 1640s and /1650s. Here it is. Right, so in the body, so you've got the musketeers, and then you've got the pikemen kind of in the middle, and if there's any, confusion with ammunition or anything goes wrong there to step in the middle. And then Salicide, as I've been saying, the musket of choice, or the most up-to-date British Army or British bought weapon at the time to be used was the matchlock musket. The matchlock musket is what's called a slow burning match, so you would light the match, blow it out, so the match doesn't just suddenly set alight, because you don't want that to happen with your musket. Then you put your powder in the pan, kind of like a frism-ish, then cock your weapon, and then the trigger is a hard trigger pull on your matchlock musket, because the trigger is actually the match, which kind of the match is there, it comes down and then lights the powder, and of course sends this little guy out here, the musket ball. Now this is technically later made French musket ball because of the size, but that's what they're firing at, depending on what team you're on who you're firing at, Cavaliers or Roundheads, that's who you're firing at. From about 60-75 yards roughly. But yeah, so that's been my first little episode in my mini-series of British Army tactics. As I said, first episode of the little mini-series of the British Army tactics, starting with the English Civil War, 1640s, 1650s, and so the next episode is going to be kind of primarily the 1700s in general. So thanks for watching, guys, have a good one, and see ya.